Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. It's Friday, which means it's Attic Find Friday. My favorite day of the week, and hopefully yours too. Man, did that Jack Morris video upset a lot of people. It's just my opinion, you guys. It's fine for you to argue. There were a lot of people who argued their own opinions very nicely, and there were a handful of people who didn't, which is fine. You know, that you're certainly entitled to be that way. My favorite, though, was the person who told me I have top 5 ugliest faces in the sports card hobby. Thank you. I appreciate that. My mom disagrees, by the way. So today, before I get into the baggy find, this just came in the mail just now. Rafael Devers rookie. I am now committed to Devers. I already had a nice PC of Devers, but now that he's signed with the Sox long term, had to grab this. It was in a cheap middle of the night auction ending. PSA 10. Yeah. I don't usually buy graded cards, but this is my second in a couple of weeks, I think. So yeah, it's a great deal for 10. I'm happy with that. Also, tomorrow, I'm supposed to be getting this today, a hobby box, my first baseball hobby box ever, and I will explain to you. I'll open it here on my channel, and I'll explain to you how I got a Topps hobby box for $10 on pre-sale on dacardworld.com. Anything weird. I didn't do anything, but that's the only reason I would ever buy a hobby box is this way, the way that I got it. So I'm really excited about that. Also, I was just asked, I've been doing the hobby think tank on Thursdays a couple of times a month since January, and apparently I haven't done terribly. I haven't killed the show, so they've asked me to start doing Hobby Hotline on Saturday mornings once a month starting April 22nd. That's one where you can call in and ask questions and talk and whatever else. So I hope you guys will tune into that on April 22nd, and every week that I'm on, I'll make sure I mention it ahead of time so you know which Saturday I'll be doing it. And I've never done, you've seen me do live. If you've been in my lives, I'm not very good at it, but we'll see. It should be fun. So this is the baggy find. The details of this come to me from both Sports Collectors Daily and Sports Collectors Digest. Both do great jobs with the write-up and provide different details that are important to the story. First of all, Sue, which is a fake name, she wanted to stay anonymous, is a mixed media artist for 40 years. And she just says that she collects old stuff and she uses them in her art. She was helping a family member. This happened in 2020, by the way, and about 10 to 15 years before that, she was helping a family member go through items in a house after a relative had passed away. Very, very common in these Attic Find Fridays. A deceased family member and family is cleaning out the house. And as a thank you, that family member, the family that she helped, gifted her a box of old things that she loves. So they included children's paper dolls, books, and toys. And in there were 178, I think, 1916 M101-4 Sporting News baseball cards. She didn't know what they were. She just looked at them. They were small. They had baseball players on the front and advertisements on the back, most of them. And she just thought they were something that she could use in her artwork. She put them in a baggie with her other old things that she's collected, things that she intends to put in artwork, and then forgot about it for 10 to 15 years. She ended up pulling it out one day, and she had it in her studio, and she was thinking about gluing it to some sort of piece of artwork, like a canvas, gluing the cards to that, and having some artwork like that. She had a friend over not long after that, and that friend was a big sports fan, and she thought, oh, this would be fun. I'll show him these cards that I have in a baggie. And she pulled them out, and she said he flipped out. And he immediately got on the internet and was looking and confirmed that these were incredibly rare old Sporting News cards, and he confirmed that she had the Babe Ruth, which is considered his rookie card, and they were just blown away. They're going through the cards. She had a bunch of the good ones, 178 out of the 200 card set. So she called up Heritage Auctions and she got Derek Grady, their vintage expert, on the phone, She sent him pictures. He says he was skeptical, but he flew out 3 days later and thought, they've been in a baggie for more than a decade. They can't be in good condition. But she had them laid out on a table, and he was pretty shocked. There were a lot of mid-grade cards in there, including the Ruth. And he looked at the Ruth and thought, this could be a 4 or a 5. So they sent 26 of the cards off to SGC to get graded. The Ruth came back a 4, just as Derek Grady thought. So awesome. Shoeless Joe Jackson came back a 5. Ty Cobb came back a 2. Hannes Wagner came back a 4. Walter Johnson came back a 5. So these were pretty darn good grades. So I'll tell you how much these went for shortly, but I want to talk about the set first. The set was marketing promotion by C.C. Spink and Son, publishers of the Sporting News back then, more than a century ago. So some of the backs have the Sporting News stamped on the back. Some of them are blank, and some of them have one of 18 advertisements that could be on the back. And some of those, of course, are more scarce than others. Some of the more scarce backs include Green Joyce Department Store or the Homes to Homes Bread Company, each of which there are only like 20 to 50 in the pop reports between SGC and PSA. These were not nationally distributed like the T206 cards. So where a T206, those cards are still plentiful 115 years later. These 1916 Sporting News cards are not plentiful now. There are hundreds and low thousands in the pop report. Have really nice photos. If you look at T206s, they're kind of paintings. These are actually photos, and in fact, you can actually make out the stadium in a lot of these. Like the Larry Doby, you can make out the polo grounds in the background that he's playing in at the time. The blank backs sold in sets and sheets. Originally, that was the first batch of them. They were printed by Chicago-based printer Felix Mendelssohn, and he marketed them to local businesses and stamped their business names on the back of them. In the April 6th, 1916 issue of Sporting News, Mendelssohn took out an ad in the Sporting News selling full pages, full sheets of these cards. Later that summer, just a couple of months later, the Sporting News was selling their own, offering them with Sporting News stamped on the back. So it sounds to me like Mendelssohn, the printer, advertising them in Sporting News, convinced Sporting News to get their own, purchase their own from him with their name stamped on the back. A lot of the companies that stamped their names on the back were clothing stores, including some children's clothing stores, and it's believed that they were given out as a premium gift when people bought things. So almost like business cards now. Not that people give out business cards as a premium, but they were handed out at the time like business cards. The M101-5 set, as distinguished in the American card catalog, is nearly identical. They have almost all the same cards. There are a few differences here and there, and similar backs. It was the M101-5, despite having a later number, was actually produced before. It was believed to have been produced in February of 1916, and the M101-4 Sporting News was produced in April. And if they have a blank back, it's impossible to tell the difference. It's a complex couple of sets of cards with the differences, but if they have the blank back, you can't tell the difference between the two sets. And the Ty Cobb was only in the M101-4 set. There's speculation that Mendelssohn didn't have the rights to put Ty Cobb in. Tris Speaker was also not in the sets, either of them. So SGC has 17 Babe Ruths and 1 Babe Ruth with a famous and bar back. And that's graded a 1. PSA has 15 Ruths and 6 blank back Ruths. So we're talking about 39 Babe Ruths graded between the two biggest companies. That's how scarce this set is. The PSA 7 blank back sold for $2.4 million in 2021. In 2023, an SGC 7, so the same grade as that Ruth, sold for $1.78 million. Now, what did these baggy find cards sell for. I've got some listed out here. The Ruth sold for $360,000. Remember, that was a SGC4. Sold for $360,000. Pretty good considering she had it in a plastic baggie for 10 to 15 years. They also had a partial set, a near set, sell for $35,000. The Shoeless Joe went for $31,000. That Shoeless Joe was a 5. So, pretty cool stuff. If you're new here, I do Attic Find Fridays every Friday, mostly vintage baseball cards, vintage sports cards for the most part. I've done, I don't know, 10 of these so far. You can follow each of these one by one through this Attic Find set on YouTube, all my videos. I do pretty much daily sports card content. Click that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments too. What do you think about this? Do you have any Sporting News 1916 cards? I want to know what it is, what card, what the grade is, if you have it graded. I hope you do. You can, of course, find these on eBay. They're not very expensive for the commons and the common backs, but the scarce backs. So if you get a common card, it could be $50, but if it's that same common card with a scarce back, it could go for $1,000 or more, depending on the grade, of course, and the back. But that's what the difference is. The scarce backs are in so much demand. All right, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a great weekend.